Hey, thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday edition because tomorrow's Mother's Day, so we won't be live on Sunday. We're live on Saturday. It is your source for cannabis legalization news on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's Tom. You can find me over at cannabisindustrylawyer.com or on this YouTube channel. We have a big week in news to go over, lots of international news. There's an interesting new law that's being proposed out of Illinois that may portend, it's not a Harvard verb, but it is a decent verb, what might happen in the next farm bill. We have some DEA news out of Minnesota, news out of the Ho-Chunk Nation. That's Wisconsin legalization news, technically. Marijuana rescheduling classification, and then also Massachusetts news. So let's get Miggy in here and get to our main story of the week. That was May 8th.
Hey.
It's the 11th. Hey, Miggy, how are your allergies treating you?
I'm fucking dying, homie. I mowed the lawn yesterday, and so many regrets. I have asthma, so it's very bad. And that's kind of the reason why I talk about this conversation with cannabis, right? Like, going through the DEA shit. Like, Benadryl will fuck me up. Benadryl, a legal drug that I go buy, will make me drunk.
Claritin. I like Claritin. I did sneeze today.
Oh, did you?
Claritin doesn't work.
No, I get the industrial strength shit, something from the VA, but I just ran out, but I'll be fine. I just wanted to. We got a lot to talk about, dude. Like this, more tea leaves. More tea leaves.
Oh, there's tea leaves, and I got a couple of emails this past week from the DEA. None of them were the money email, though. So just kind of other crappy non-cannabis related scheduling news that they're publishing in the Register. So I'll share that again. If you guys want to figure out how to get the updates from the DEA when they're going to publish the Schedule 3 in the Federal Register, there is a website you can go, federalregister.gov, and search for the DEA. Hey, Jacksonville, Florida is joining us. So what did you think the main story was? I thought it was the DEA lawmakers. The DEA had just like being MIA in...
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's pretty interesting. Like, that's how, again, it's like Upton Sinclair said, you can't make anybody understand something if they're paid to not understand it.
Yeah.
Well, so long, they've been fighting this. How can they suddenly change their tune and be like, you're right, we were wrong. Our bad.
But that's kind of what's happening, dude. Like the story that you're talking about, it's the one that says, DEA head tells lawmakers it would be inappropriate to. Oh no, that's not one.
It's a comment on marijuana rescheduling proposal due to ongoing administrative process.
So, the other article was in Business of Cannabis, where DEA administrator allegedly absent from cannabis rescheduling decision, right? Because supposedly they're not signing off on this.
It's basically the same. Yeah, story. The same story from different angles. And so, like, what's the gist of the other one?
Well, it's kind of the same, but not the same, because the first one, the DEA recently spoke in front of Congress, and that was like whether she was like dodging the question, right? Whereas Kevin Sabet, the asshole of America, he talked about
America. He's
the taint of Florida.
Gets paid when you go to rehab, and so like he is just like Upton Sinclair as well. It's hard for him to understand why marijuana should be legal when he gets paid, because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we haven't been able to do research for the good, and it's always the harms. One of the things, though, I thought was quite interesting was the tweet. Did you see the tweet that I shared from DEA?
No. Let's cover the tweet, and then I have some quotes from the DEA head administrator, Anne Milgram, when she was asked at the administrative hearings by Representative C.A. Dutch Ruppensperger, Democrat out of Maryland.
Well, recently, and you can go to the DEA page, but this statement alone, the shift from plant-based drugs like heroin and cocaine to synthetic chemical-based drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine has resulted in the most dangerous and deadly drug crisis the United States has ever faced. Like, this is no shit Sherlock stuff. This is stuff we've been talking about. At the heart of synthetic drug crisis are the Sonoma and Jalisco cartels and their associates who the DEA is tracking worldwide. Like, supply and demand is the issue, and also the lack of real scheduling is just bad. And I think them pointing out the shift from plant-based drugs to synthetic is a huge more motions, I think, be made.
They need to allow access to the plant-based drugs. That's what they need. They need to allow access to the plant-based drugs. But
Yeah.
When Representative Ruppensberger, Democrat out of Maryland, inquired about the rescheduling decision with Milgrom at the hearing, despite her opening comments that she said she would not talk about it, she reiterated that the process is ongoing and she would not speak about it directly. And then she went on to quote, the formal rulemaking process for scheduling or rescheduling controlled substances, that process is ongoing. The next step in the process will be a notice of the proposed rulemaking and then an opportunity for public comment. Because DEA is involved very much in the scheduling process and the DEA administrator is personally involved in it, it would be inappropriate for me to comment on it at this time, said lead administrator of the DEA, Anne Milgram.
Yeah. And again, all eyes on OMB right now. That's where it should be.
Well, that's technically not what she just said. She said, the quote again was, the next step will be a notice of proposed rulemaking and then an opportunity for public comment. And so that means that you can go to federalregister.gov and the DEA. And so agencies in the federal register, okay, let me show you one more time. And then I'm going to share this. Oh, crap. I love when I hit present or present. And then what do I hit? I hit the close window tab because I hit X instead of this. This is the federalregister.gov where you can see this right there. You subscribe, a filed on public inspection and also published. Go for it. Sign up for it. I'm going to hit that in the chat. And I might also throw that on a pinned comment down there. But we can get back to the next thing.
But, you know, I mean, I know that she's like, she talked about the process that you talked about, right? Like that's once it gets in her hands.
Job. She is the lead administrator of the DEA.
Yeah. But there's a process. But right now the process is in the OMB office. Is what my big who to do is like until this thing is in the DEA's hands, why are you even like, you know, fussing? Like this is not even a fuss. I mean, unless your chemists are back, because then it's like, progress. We can't have that. No. You know,
it's a highly politicized plant for some reason. Those are the show notes, and then it's kind of where we're at with the DEA saying yada yada yada. My only gripe with Marijuana Moment is they really cram as many ads as they can into it. Next story is coming out of New York, the dumpster fire that is cannabis legalization. Man, I remember when New York passed it 3 years ago, and everybody thought it was going to be so great. And I'm like, yeah, it might be. And then they just started fumbling the ball and screwing up and doing all sorts of dumb shit. And I'm like, oh, okay. Did you know that there's nobody in charge? So like it just goes from one person to another without anything. Like, have you ever tried to call the IRS and ask for any help? Let me know how it goes in the comments. Want to hear that. And so it's one of those where they had put no people in charge, and so that then one regulator would not know what the other regulator was doing, and then nobody gets this thing rolled out. And they just keep changing the rules. It has been the worst rollout of a legal cannabis regime that I've seen in my 5 years in the industry, which is not very long. Don't get me wrong, but pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Well, it's funny too, though. You think New York would have had their shit together because it's like a
New Jersey has its shit together.
Yeah,
New York is a shit show. There's a difference. If they had their shit together, they would have moved to New Jersey. But Holtz confirmed Friday that OCM Director Chris Alexander will not be reappointed after his term is up in September, meaning he gets to collect checks until at least September. He plans to pursue other opportunities. Alexander's exit comes after the licensing process for shops and yada yadas, hampered by onslaught of legal challenges, mixed steps, and proliferation of gray market shops flooding the state.
Yeah, well, and then I don't know. I shared with you guys, but New York. I mean, we've been talking about just how bad, like with all the bodegas and other, pop-ups and showing up, and now, and again, no one's in charge, but yet they're like, hey, snitches. Because I saw this from the NYS Office of Management on Twitter as well, where they're asking you to reach out and send them information of illegal bodegas that you find. So, like, this It's a shit show. Like, if they would have rolled this out properly, and again, Washington State kind of did the wrong thing too.
That woman does not smoke weed. She doesn't
Oh.
give two fucks about weed, man. She doesn't. And
That's
it
a wine
is
mom.
one of those deals where the person that's in charge doesn't care. And then I like how the critics are blaming her for defecting. She just tries to deflect any responsibility for it. So she believes Chris Alexander is being made to be a fall guy after Hochul tried to make Andrew Cuomo the fall guy, who was, the governor who did nothing wrong in his mind. And so the former deputy communications director opined to the Post, sooner or later, she's going to have to run out of fall guys. Yeah, right. New York is made out of fall guys.
I think they get excited. And a lot of states do this, right? Where even the mayor, Adams, was talking about like how we're going to grow on top of the buildings, right? Like everybody has this quick like green rush feeling, but then when you don't lay the rules out properly, when you don't actually give people a fighting chance to just be a part of the industry that they're already a part of illicitly, right? Like the traditional market of trading dollars for green bags is going to always exist until you give people a viable option, right? Give them a chance, which, rescheduling could at least move the ball more forward than where it's at now nationally.
Perhaps. But have you seen the news out of Minnesota?
Yes.
This one was very odd. And so in Minnesota, they have a certain Bill of Rights. Let me just look for FARM, farms. Let's see, the word farm appears quite often in, it kind of makes sense. There it is. And so I'll just go ahead and throw this up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it is not very large, and so that helps. And then so does this, and unfortunately, we're in section 15. We have to go to, let's go to 4 and then 5. There it is, section 7 of Article 1 of the miscellaneous subjects. And of course, this is, if you were keeping track at home, the Constitution of the State of Minnesota. Article 13, miscellaneous subjects. Section 7, no license required to peddle, which is a fancy verb to mean sell. As they kind of equate it right here, any person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him without obtaining a license therefor. Which means that if you have a tomato garden, you may sell or peddle those tomatoes, I'm assuming. And a lawsuit, this is coming out of Marijuana Moment, is saying that the Minnesota Constitution gives everybody in Minnesota the right to, if you have the license to, I guess, grow weed and sell it without a license. But then they say you don't need a license. And why don't you need a license? Because a person may sell or peddle the products of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him without obtaining a license therefor. So licenses, we don't need no stinking licenses in Minnesota. Meanwhile, I'm trying to sell licenses in Minnesota. Well, I'm trying to sell services to obtain a license to clients who qualify for one in Minnesota.
That's some pioneer law shit, though. But this is going to make a difference to the. Are you familiar with the case of the raid with the White Earth Nation out there?
Mm-mm.
So I'm talking to Todd Thompson. I hope to have him on and do an interview and talk about what's going on with him. There was a raid that was aided and abetted by the state on reservation land. So my man here was fundamentally, he turned his smoke shop. It was selling homegrown cannabis out of his store. So this, hey, it's that time.
What time is that, Mickey? For all of the people that are listening on their commute, see their insufferable jobs that they can't wait for AI to replace them in. What time is it, by the way?
4:20, baby.
4:20 somewhere. We shall be back after this brief commercial interlude. You know what? We're going to get something new. And this would actually be for those good people in Minnesota, unless we got the license. We have the lawsuit up here too. And so I got a couple of things. There's this is the lawsuit that they have filed. It's 12 pages. citing that thing. He wants to. The law that legalized it says they're allowed to grow up to 8 plants with no more than 4 being mature, and they can grow that in their garden. And then the Constitution says you're allowed, and then they don't need a license to do so. And then the statute says they're allowed to. This was filed on May the 7th in the district court in the state of Minnesota. We will see what happens. This would be interesting, and it may frustrate our new offering over at Collateral Base, the Social Equity License Lottery Plan. This is something that's really exciting. If you have been arrested for cannabis, you may be eligible to participate in the Social Equity Licensing Lottery in Minnesota, where it appears that you only need to be able to have a garden to sell any of the weed. We will see how this plays out. But Chestnut Cambrone, PA, attorney Jeff O'Brien from the law firm of Chestnut Cambrone out of Minnesota in Minneapolis, are the attorneys for the plaintiffs on this. It'll be interesting to see if that gets dismissed.
Yeah.
Because why would you go ahead and learn about how to roll the dice as a social equity applicant with our new social equity social equity license lottery plan? Free information, by the way. If the only thing you need to do was move to Minnesota and just grow 4 plants.
Well, the thing is, though, the 4 plants is going to be what kind of sustainable life?
Oh, it won't be.
Or income. So, but I think that case will help Todd Thompson on the White Earth Reservation. And also, he's also fighting for some fundamental, native rights, too, with what he's done with the store. Because Minnesota's a very weird, even the nation in their constitutions have, these rules that were, set out for freedoms for the individuals, right? The actual Constitution is very vague, right? We all have a right to, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and all this stuff. And then there's bylaws.
Technically, we do not have any of those rights.
I mean,
there is due process, but then those life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, those rights, those are very, very reined in. They're more so than you might think. They should teach that in high school, especially in Florida.
Florida news, yeah. Well,
where it may not legalize it. They may not legalize it down there in Florida. Some people are blaming True Leaf because their product allegedly is not that good. I don't know.
Ooh,
I have not had any of their product lately. I hear Sunburn Cannabis, though, is supposed to be really good. Shout out to Sunburn Cannabis.
Well, there's only 3 damn options there, right, for grows or whatever?
No, there are 22 damn options down there, and soon there may be 44 if that guy, and that guy that I'm pointing to, by the way, for those of you listening in your cars or on whatever you do with your podcast, is Ron DeSantis. He is the high-heeled wearing governor of the state of Florida. Okay, fine, maybe they're lifts, whatever, Mr. DeSantis. You cannot talk him out of nothing.
Yeah.
He's already made up his mind about everything.
The sanctimonious. And again, this is just you don't get mad at fire for burning you. These people, and I hate to say these
really
people
close. They're really close. But then they're really close for it. And so and it looks like they're gonna have more than just weed on the ballot. And so they need 60%. And so the Florida Chamber of Commerce took out a poll of likely Florida voters, and currently it's 58%. They say legalize it. 37% oppose, maybe because of Ron DeSanctimonious is for a voting bloc. I'm not sure. But in contrast, they say that shows a separate abortion rights measure because in Florida, you can only have one thing per ballot measure. And so it has to have a single subject. That's why there's 2 ballot measures, one for abortion, one for legalizing weed. Okay. And that has 61% of support. And so we're talking about a swing of 3%. What is this? Is this May? This is May. Isn't this May?
Yeah. So are they hoping for the turnout then? Is that I just don't that's just fucked up, dude. Because Arizona had the same situation, right? With the 55%. You would think majority wins, but it doesn't work that way in some states.
Not when you're amending the Constitution. And so it's the same thing in the United States. And so if you're amending our Constitution, it's not enough to have 51. I think we have to have 67. Of course, I'm rounding up a little bit.
67%, you said? Your mic was starting to drift out again.
Oh, good. My mic was drifting out. That's what I like.
It's back.
Thank you, StreamYard or Apple. We're going to need to get some That's what we'll do. When we get financing for the dispensary, part of it is marketing budget, and then we'll figure out and we'll pay a consultant to like really drive this thing up.
Yeah. Oh, I look forward to when we can share content, not just about the plant and the medicine and cannabinoids, but also the business side of things, you know, because you actually are in the business side of things as someone who has been a legacy middleman, you know, you have like cannabis teaches you a lot, right? It teaches you the math with metrics. It teaches you like if I buy a quarter pound for $200, that's 4 ounces. Do I want profit or do I want to just have it even? You know, there's a business side to. There's always been, and there always has to be for, you know, a farmer grows not to like, you know, help people. I mean, they do, right? Like you really do, but the farmer needs to eat. The farmer needs to go to the store and buy things.
The farmer's the one that always gets pressed.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's something about the business that a lot of people don't know. I'm not going to reiterate it. That's one of the hacks about getting the licenses. The farmers always get squeezed.
Yeah. Well, and that's markets. It's unfortunate. Like this is not legalization I thought it was going to be, right? Like I thought
farmers get squeezed in corn. Like I go down there and some corn or soybean farmer would get his little titty in the ringer, as we say it here in Central Illinois, and that could mean like, and that's business as well. It is a cash flow thing. Yeah. And so you're paying. I mean, imagine that nobody's trying to get you when you're flipping minis, you know, or like whatever you're doing legacy to like get some free weed. That's not a business. You know, that's it's being entrepreneurial on a very rudimentary scale, and so
very minute.
Yeah, right.
Well, and that's the thing. Is like I used to buy quarter pounds, but the end of the day, I only had enough for a good night. It was never for like this is what sustainable how I'm going to live. You know, because it's the weight at that point.
And not only that, the risk goes up as the numbers go up.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's nice to have a license or call it hemp. Hey, let's go look at some stuff that we know is not hemp. This is going to not be hemp, as we say, name that strain and figure out what it is. Okay. Oh, this is the Led Zeppelin song. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a Led Zeppelin. You know, I'm not sure which one it was on. Maybe 2. I'm not sure. It is a Parents Are Blackberry Kush and Emerald Headband. Gave birth to this medium-sized plant expressing dark, nearly very dark leaves that give way to sticky, dense buds. Mixture of grapes and berries and oil, and quite relaxing. That sounds like it is. I mean, with all that, I don't see the word indica. I don't see any of the morphology clues on the description. But
if I didn't have my allergies right now, I could make that. Hey, Chris got it.
All right.
Nice.
Cool.
No history, though. Huh?
No history. It is by Humboldt Seed Organization. There's some history. Humboldt Seed Organization, Black Dog, Blackberry Kush crossed with Emerald Headband. Sounds good to me.
I was asking Tom, do you think safe baking will happen before Schedule 3?
No.
Yeah. Because it's Congress.
No, yeah, that's correct. And so Congress has like maybe 6 weeks of work left before the election. Tops. Tops. But, I mean, like with Illinois, like, and then like Texas might not even be in session this year. And so like with Illinois, they are going to be gone in 3 weeks by the end of May. And that's it, you know, and then it's an election year. They have to go run.
Well, you know, everybody with this whole rescheduling thing, they're like, well, Biden should just deschedule it. He's got the juice, which he does, right? But this, no,
he doesn't. He doesn't. This was, I got a little upset with my producers earlier today, where like that was the draft. Like it was 3 paragraphs because I've been busy at the office, and so what gets left for dead? The YouTube channel, because come on, let's be honest. Like,
That's not bill payer, but it's fun hanging out with you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, you guys, especially the members. Oh, speaking of, one of the members is going to get that Legalization Nation book mailed to them. They reached out, somebody from Minnesota, actually, which was interesting. I just made a post about it, and somebody was like, yeah, I want to get in on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Box Brown, a dope dude.
Yes. He's very open market.
Where do you want to go next? You want to go international? Or?
Oh, yes. Let's do the international.
R.I.P. Thailand.
Thailand, the yo-yo of legalizing it. And guess who's walking that back? Thailand.
So bad, dude. Like, I don't get why. Like, what in the reefer madness is going on?
I don't know. We need to get somebody who's got boots on the ground in Thailand, that's in with the regulators, knows who's talking about. That's hard to get. Trying to get some info from the Thailand. The prime minister wants to outlaw cannabis 2 years after it was decrimmed. And so they were the first country in Asia to legalize it. Now they want to go back. And this president, which is not a president, it's a prime minister in Thailand, straight out ordered local authorities to suppress criminal activities linked to the illegal drug trade and demanded to see progress within 90 days. Not only that, also saying, hey, recriminalize. Is that what would happen? You know, if Biden loses in November, would the Republicans try to recriminalize cannabis and move it back to Schedule 1? Ban all of it? I don't know.
No motion, but he says here concerns that the lack of regulation had made it available to children and increased crimes. Like, show me the data. You know, like,
but then it's political, and so you might be making progress, and it is Congress has to act. That's really how it is. That Congress has to pass the law because Biden can't drop it. Biden can move it and direct that they move it, and then the DEA can move it and like drag its feet and say like, okay, we're going to move it, and then Sam's going to be like, we're going to sue you, and because it's all built in. So Congress really has to change it. They have to amend the Controlled Substances Act. Maybe they're going too far by like saying we're going to do this and that and the other thing. But when 95% of one of the parties will not vote for it, what are you going to do?
The president couldn't do an executive order, or would that executive order just last for a little bit? Like
the executive order does not authorize the president to drop it and you reschedule it.
So that'd be the only option he has is just like I can reschedule
it. So we would have to go ahead and reread again, and I haven't read it in like 4 months because it always comes up like every 4 months. Section 811 of the Controlled Substances Act, with regarding the authority of the Attorney General to move things in the schedule.
Well, because I asked you, remember before too, that with that statement from the DEA asking about or mentioning plant-based medicines, I thought, well, why couldn't they just add another category to the CSA? Why couldn't there be
because that is okay. They can. But what you've described is legislation. Those are laws. Congress has to make those. Now we're talking about enforcement of laws. And so the Controlled Substances Act allows the enforcer to move stuff on a schedule.
Okay.
But not to like create a new schedule.
It's got to be legislation then. Congress has got to get his ass together, sit down.
And then like from my recollection as well, it's section 823 where it says, hey, no, it's 811. You can't move on the schedule if it's out of compliance with international law. So that boxes the president in. It's like, you're on these 5 schedules.
Right.
And he picked 3, which is fine. Now, if it could be OTC 3, I love it. OTC 3. That's going to be my comment on the rule.
It's crazy. The president can't reschedule or deschedule cannabis, but they can send SIL T6 to go get their enemies.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Murder's okay.
I just think it's interesting that they're walking it back in Thailand, and so like, you think our industry is unpredictable and chaotic, and so you should have like a really hard discount factor on it for its cash flows? Not in Thailand. That was completely the rug being pulled out from you. That's the other thing I want you to understand. Like the rug being pulled out from you is kind of par for the course for the cannabis industry.
Yeah,
very often, or it just like changes.
in powers, right? So this one person thinks cannabis is bad, whereas, dude, I've been in Thailand in service, and I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed much. But the gross sex industry that's predominant there, like they have serious nefarious underbellies that are thriving. And it's like, what's weed? It's fucking weed, man. It fucking helps your people all over. Wellness wise, maybe possibly t-shirts, the environment. It's an amazing plant that can do all kinds of shit, but
tell that to the people of New Hampshire.
There you go.
New Hampshire. It must be. Let me just do this is me being cynical. Why don't you? I'm going to Google what's the political dynamics of New Hampshire, and you have the story up so you can kind of fill in the people with the updates.
I got it somewhere. I'm trying to find it. Got it. Boom. So New Hampshire Cannabis Association says to House legalization bill are positive steps forward. Okay. So lawmakers in the state Senate are proposing changes to the House Cannabis Legalization bill that could help it get to the governor's desk. The changes would give the state more oversight on the ways cannabis could be sold in New Hampshire, but people who support legalization to the amendments presented are all bad. I mean, fuck, we all got to just get what we can get, right? It includes a franchise model that could cap storefronts statewide at 15. Ouch. I mean, it's a tiny state.
Weird.
Still 15.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense then. Because I'm reading about New Hampshire, the politics there of it. And it is a swing state for New England.
Yeah.
New Hampshire is a swing state for New England, even though it has voted for Republicans for national office during the 19th and 20th centuries. Since 1992, it is a swing state. In 2006, control of the state legislature in New Hampshire's congressional seats have switched back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, which is another reason why it may not have completely legalized, as it is an inherently political thing. And with, it looks like 45 to 53% of the vote. So like 45% Republicans and 53% Democrats. Yeah, it's going to be one of those where it's conservative, but then like you look at it, it says anti-regulatory sentiment. So New Hampshire is often associated with a laissez-faire approach to regulation, economic and government policy. Its cigarette taxes are the cheapest in New England.
Wow.
But yet, maybe it's big tobacco. So laissez-faire unless it's weed.
Well, I mean, but maybe because it's a new economy, maybe because it also gives the citizenry, even though they're conservative,
it's one of the 3 states in the nation that does not have any laws regarding regulating motorcycle helmet safety.
Ah, see, freedom.
And so it's freedom. Wait a minute. The state does not require gun owners to get a license or register their weapons. Freedom. Can I smoke a joint? No, you may not.
Yeah.
Same-sex marriage, even though it goes on. Freedom. Same-sex marriage legal in New Hampshire since 2010. Civil unions
alcohol
were legalized in 2008.
Yeah,
and so what is up with New Hampshire? How it's like so freedom and seemingly liberal, or at least swing state, and they're like, no weed.
That's insane, dude. But again, if this goes through, it is steps forward. So 15 stores, and plus you're giving your townships options to opt out. That the market, I mean, people are going to be driving wherever the spots happen. That's guaranteed money, and that's the unfortunate part of this whole gamification of this the system is those 15 stores have a lottery ticket, right? Like you and I, when we open our store, we're going to service 100,000 people locally. I hope that's going to be the.
It depends. Like family. There's like we can go over the map. I can bring up the map if you want to see where we're going. So yeah, cannabis. There's actually some good industry. Cannabis dispensary Illinois map. And so like there are some neat websites, and so like they are actually maintained by the state.
Oh sure. So showing like the perimeter of the stores around, or
right. And so I drove by one today.
This is something that New York could use.
New York probably also has one of these, but then if you zoom into where we're at, there's quite a few already, and so like there's not a lot of us out there to get some more, but those are all of them, and so like I'm thinking like maybe over here, maybe over here.
Damn.
All of this is all opt-out country. Trying to
Oh,
figure out how to
shit.
break opt-out country is tough.
Well, also to figure out if there's a market in opt-out country. I mean, maybe you can get
Oh
opt-out
yeah,
country
there's
to opt in.
right here. So if we dropped one right here, there's like 100,000 people. Like, but then it's the conservative area, and so the conservative area
Okay.
opted out. And this is where all the hippies live.
What is conservative though, dude? You know, as a citizen there, fellow American, I think we all have the same page, right? Like what the
No, conservatives
Jesus?
right here. Washington.
Abortion?
There's lots of Jesus.
That's
And
it.
so, but yeah, Woodford County. You might not as well include it because good luck trying to. But these are our counties that we can use. These 5 right here, Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, Marshall, Stark, and Putnam. That is where the dispensary would be, or has to be.
Yeah. Well, and as long as it stays the way it is, we're definitely going to be doing well. I think, and that's just something that we get to share.
If we run the business correctly, and again, you have to put your other people out of business.
Yeah, no, the market.
You know how Solomon Brothers was run, like in the 80s in Wall Street and stuff?
No.
Solomon Brothers got sold to Shearshin. Amex basically bought Solomon Brothers before it went bankrupt in like 2008. So I like to study like finance and hedge funds or like those types of things. But it's that, but then like it's cash flows and contract rights. And that's really what's important. And so like you have to approach it from that, and then you have to see where you're going to have those rights and how long you can extend them out into the future, and then exclusion of others. Like you want them to go to your shop, not the other shop.
But I mean, but until we don't have any real competition, that's that. But our competition at that moment will be the traditional market, right? And I get
the traditional market and internet THCA. But then, imagine THCA is illegal. People will still be selling weed on the internet. They've been selling weed on the internet since the first effing transaction on the internet. It's 50 years ago.
Having a store though, we are conveyors of good cannabis, right? We're gonna be like, hey, this is weed. It's not Delta 9 hemp THC. Like I want to look at these farms. I want to make surprise inspections and check things out. Like that's the part I'm looking forward to. Like as far as like
there's so few farms open. We have to get the farms open, which is going to be interesting. They have like a lifeline bill out to save the farms, because so many of them would lose their license here in 3 months. So they're thinking about just marrying them to these people that have like an obscene amount of canopy, more canopy than they can grow, because the supply is so like controlled and all that shit. We need more supply, and we need more demand sites. And then every state does this. So like they shut down the hemp industry. The hemp industry is only 5 minutes old, and by each minute it's a year, right? Yeah. And so like that kind of stuff, the rug gets pulled out from you and changed all the time. So that's the Illinois shit. Let's talk about that for a moment. That wasn't on the notes, but let's do the Illinois update to what might be this could be what happens to the definition of hemp at the federal level.
Exciting.
Especially considering like what we've just seen from New Hampshire. Like, you don't have to wear a motorcycle helmet because there's enough Republicans, though. You can't have legal weed.
And as
freedom.
Yeah, but as we go through the documentation, the actual bill, I want everybody to calm down. Like, ladies, you need to hold back here. This is the sexy meat potatoes of like these damn. Dude, what was it like? So it's 442 pages. I got my share if you want.
Yeah, that's right. It is a 442-page law that it does not yet exist. It is a bill. It has not yet become a law, but this is the regulation of hemp. And so states lead, and this is a huge, complex, comprehensive regulatory scheme of hemp-derived cannabinoids. And remember, what did the Democrats say they were going to do? So there's one hemp cannabinoid product. What was the feds going to do? They were going to define industrial hemp as cannabis grown not for its cannabinoid. And so that means that, are they going to create all these new definitions at the federal level with this new rule? I don't know. They could.
But this is a well thought out document when it comes to like just the beginning of every freaking definition. Like it's so many definitions. Like I got excited because of the accredited body and the background when it came to like the quality in the labs and whatnot. But then, as we saw, it breaks down different components of hemp, different extraction. I would have never thought about like. But again, will rescheduling override the hemp act bill? Will that be like just a
No, they are hemp is hemp and marijuana is marijuana. Rescheduling is just for marijuana. But if they change the definition of hemp and the definition of industrial hemp becomes a thing, and then they change the definition, what if there is no definition of marijuana?
Yeah.
What if they put that into the waste bin of the future or of history? Because the reason why they called the cannabis plant marijuana in the first place was racism. I mean, like you can go there. They spelled it with the fucking H. This was before America spoke Spanish. And like, you know, they would be like, it's marijuana, H.
That, I mean, it is, and again, we should regulate like Africa does, post-harvest. Like, that's it. It's just a plant.
It's then they're starting to regulate it for what are you growing it for? Like the end product. And so like that 400-page bill, what are they doing? They're talking about regulating it for the end product, the hemp-derived cannabinoid product.
But if you can get the same cannabinoid from hemp and marijuana, at what point do you say it's two different plants? I mean, just because of THC, with the, you know what I mean?
They're all cannabinoids, and so like it's just like you can take whatever is in poppies, right, and extract that goo from poppies, and probably make all sorts of things. Not only heroin, but who knows? I'm not a chemist. The chemists may watch, hopefully, and they could educate us on that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there is. And speaking of you brought that a chemist, dude, isn't it funny how like with marijuana and how like the stigma of stupidity, there are more fucking lawyers, scientists, lawmakers that are involved with this damn plant that smoke it. You know, it's
no wonder it's all messed up.
You know what I mean?
Correct. Yeah. I tell you what, this is the first. Let's go to Kansas, and then we do cover Kansas news sometimes. Whenever we cover Kansas news, you usually know it's bad. Yeah. And you always hope when you tune in, it's like, oh, maybe there'll be some good cannabis legalization news out of Kansas. Maybe Kansas is going to give us some glimmer of hope. Perhaps Kansas Coalition seeks to legalize adult use of cannabis and expunge criminal records. That's out of Overland Park, Kansas.
That's a good one. They're in expunge records? I didn't have it up. That one I skipped. I missed.
Well, it's I don't think. Tune in a few more weeks to see if this passes, because I don't think this is going to get very, very far.
Ooh, I did hear though Kansas is going to have a medical program. It's called Minnesota.
Kansas is going to have a medical program called Minnesota. It's hilarious.
Hey, I'll be here all day.
Well, Wisconsin. So for the first time doing this show, I got to talk about Wisconsin. I hope it's not the last, and I also hope it does not become as bad as when I talk about Kansas, which is always depressing. Kansas, Wisconsin, kind of this. Indiana, Iowa. Talk about it. Remember that one time we did that expose on Idaho? No, me either, because nothing good comes out of Idaho. So, right, Ho-Chunk Nation.
Yes.
This is, of course, in the Ho-Chunk Nation, which if you get outside of it, you happen to be in Wisconsin. And so the Wisconsin and the Ho-Chunk Nation is thinking about decriminalizing cannabis, but will they be the first area in Wisconsin to legalize it? Many states that have nations on there or within their boundaries, the first people to legalize it are the native people. This happened in New York. I think it happened in Minnesota. Many others, I think like the Dakotas, they have this style. And why wouldn't they legalize it then in Wisconsin on the nation? Because it's different laws, different sovereignty.
Well, you know what's funny? When we did it here in Washington, that was one of the first things they did was come to a treaty with the local tribes as far as like, you won't undercut us. You know, you won't lower taxes.
The thing was like, this was when you legalized it. Say like when you're talking about like Wisconsin or Kansas or something like relative to Washington State, maybe you've been in the future for like a decade. And so like they went there when they legalized it because that probably means they were catching up to them, you know?
Yeah. Well, and again, with like the case in Minnesota with the tribe that voluntarily let local state authorities raid, it's a very conflicted issue. How do you let law enforcement from state actors raid a reservation? And the thing is, the powers that be have to allow that, right? The elders or whoever's been voted into and elected. Todd is very opinionated. Like I won't be part of the system, but I'm gonna, because they're given that on the res. They're given this fundamental, like they're like nature fucking laws, right? Like you are as a person. That's the whole sovereign city bullshit. Where it's like they
got that. They got that in Minnesota now. I mean, like, can you imagine that? You're allowed to have 4 plants in flower, and another 4 in the tank.
Yeah.
And farmers market season's coming, and you have that in your constitution. Man,
jars be coming out.
Well, of course, it would be like Integrity Farms and shit.
Hell
It would be so because like you pulled out, and then so you only have you wouldn't have very many harvests, so you would have to try to grow them for weight. You would have to see if you get like a 5-pound monster because like you grow that in your garden, you have to stick to your plant limits.
Yeah.
Good
and
luck.
Like, that's it. One plant. It's fucking 8
One
foot
plant.
tall.
Well, yeah, and you have to
6
have it
foot
ready
wide.
for, because then the farmers market season comes up.
Oh
Do you have to get? Can anybody just start a farmers market then in Minnesota? Can you just get like a card table?
No,
Street corner card table. My tomatoes.
That's the thing, though. It always takes.
Bitch.
Yeah, but you need that person that does that. We had those farmers markets here in Washington State when it was medical. That blew my fucking mind, dude.
Yeah.
I walked into a place where a bunch of grown-ups decided they were going to rent out this building or whatever it was, various tastes. Every Sunday, they were going to do it or whatever. There was a schedule, and then you pop up, and people showed up with pounds just to with everybody had their medical card, so you had to walk in. Like, we try hard to be law-abiding citizens if there's a path, but if there's not, you're fucking doing what you do anyways.
Hey, let's talk about stocks now.
There we go. Hot stocks.
Because that's the difference.
Dude. That's funny, dude.
Cannabis affiliate in Pennsylvania. There's $10.5 million loan. That's what you need. You need debt in this industry.
Yeah. Oh, you're coming in out.
Oh, well, then why don't you take this one?
There you go. Tilt Holdings Cannabis affiliate in Pennsylvania secures a $10.5 million loan. And as Tom was saying, that's how you want to start, was in debt. This is the Arizona base.
Arizona's a good place to be in debt. You should be able to secure debt in Arizona. You should also be able to secure debt in Illinois based off of cash flows if you can anticipate them or if you already have them. So having cash flows helps you to start having other cash flows. So if you're already an entrepreneur, that helps getting your dispensary wing going.
The business plan, I think that's the failure that a lot of these like MedMen, they
have a business plan.
Well, they do, but like I think always too, though, there's gonna be a bottom line no matter what, right? Like, and if you don't overstretch yourself as far as like we're gonna be the only ones in the local area, and we're gonna, our bud tenders win and the consumers. I think it's gonna be a very win-win situation, but we're not gonna be overstretching all the money that comes in. We're gonna be like, hey, it goes back into that because that's how you start. We're not gonna
we'll see. 20% rate of interest on that, and it's got a what year is this for? So it's got a 3-year term, and then it really goes into credit card interest territory. So they expect them to pay that money back pretty quick.
Yeah. So they expect a pretty busy area then.
Right? Well, they can also prepay in cash or kind without the lender's written consent before the maturity date. There's no payments due until the maturity date.
Damn.
It's all what you negotiate.
Yeah.
Markets.
But how do you make $1 million? You start with a small $1 million loan, right?
Oh, you say that you get an asset that's worth in excess of $1 million, or you get a flow of assets that are worth more than $1 million. and then typically those assets are based off of cash flows. And so one of the ways that we'll try to set what we think the paper value of a license is, we'll have to run a model, and then only experienced operators would be able to say like, oh yes, if I put that here and I run this business at that, I should make these free cash flows, which makes it a very tight market, which is hard. But if you can get to those free cash flows and understand what they're worth, that's kind of what the license is worth.
Yeah. And that's why they're still valuable, even though I've seen many for sale on Weed Biz or subreddit in California.
That's a different market.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People trying to get the fuck out of there.
But it's a completely different market. And so like, we can get, you have to pick where you're going to put it, and then you put it there, and then you market it, and then you do everything you can to get it to sell more, including saying like, hey, you need to protect us as these license holders. We have the privilege. They don't. They call it a privilege, by the way. This privilege does not belong to Miggy and me. No, it does not. It belongs to the state of Illinois. They bestowed it because we were qualified.
Well, it's just like a driver's license, right? Like,
no, a driver's license is not a yes. It is a privilege that they can revoke.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, like that's the unfortunate part of this capitalistic wheel. Being the cogs that I am.
Right. It's a privilege that they could revoke. There's the difference between a privilege, and then there's a difference between a right. And so like having a cannabis dispensary is not like having a pizzeria. And so like having a hemp shop is not like having a cannabis dispensary, because one's a privilege, the other one's just selling rope. State of Massachusetts has an agency conducting a national search for a new boss. Oh, good. More regulators shuffling.
Yeah, I mean, this is constant, right? Like they're always trying to figure out how to do.
Well, not really. That's tenure right there. That's a long time. The Collins, it was Sean Collins. He was the person who officially stepped down. He led the agency since 2017. Unfortunately, he found himself at the center of controversy when Shannon O'Brien that he had suddenly quit, putting the commission in crisis. There you go.
Do you
suspended with pay? Man,
it's
almost better than owning the company.
Do you think though, like, just like, I never really paid attention to like business news when it came to like new CEOs and new realignments and configurations, and then
CEOs can blow out a company one way or the other. They could like ruin it.
But these little, do you think they affect markets as well?
What do you mean by a market? Markets are like relative size, basically. And so like there's markets that you would have for your dispensary, which would be like pretty much so many, and then what's your traffic patterns, and then what's your ability to make a connection with people in the area. So those types of things.
I think I'm saying it wrong. Whereas like the new law in town for like a state, do you think it affects like people's money involved, like like investments and whatnot?
Yeah. Okay, so like the market that we'll have is the market that's out there for our population demographic that's around it, and those traffics that are there. Like those are going to like really dictate who your possible customers can be. And then who are those people? Why are they buying weed? How much weed are they buying? How can you target those people so they buy more weed? All of that, that's what marketing is. It's figuring out who your customers are, how you position yourself to be like, hey, you know what you like? Our weed. How about some of that? Yeah.
That's how you should sell weed. You want.
You find the person who buys it. Yeah.
What you want. Weed sells itself.
It can. But you have to make sure that it's good. No, Illinois, that's kind of an issue. So we might want to like bring some price compression to a certain extent. Be like, oh, these pre-rolls are a little cheaper, and we move a lot of them. But I hope that if they push all these craft growers into co-ops, there's a bill that may push craft growers into co-ops, so they would have to rent space from like the Crescos and the GTIs and the MSOs of the world. Which then would mean that they could get operational. They don't have to revoke the licenses unless they still don't get operational or something. And that would allow them to, try to keep some more product in the streets that they could say is social equity and craft and all that. So then you would have more diversity of product, which may help the prices come down a bit.
Yeah, the legal streets. Because
the
like
legal streets.
So, what do you think about Maryland's reclassification? Blah blah blah. Reclassification would give Maryland's cannabis industry a major tax cut. Are they
Oh, that's
rescheduling
interesting.
it?
Everybody's rescheduling it, and so it's
Mm.
federal, but yes, and so like most states' tax laws follow the federal tax law, which means that IRC 280E would still apply. Uh, Years after they legalize it, the legislature fixes that problem very often. Sometimes they take it into account, but it's a coin flip's chance. And so that's one of the reasons why now they wouldn't have to take it into account, because Schedule 3 means that IRC 280E doesn't apply. So you don't need that specific exception under federal law. The larger issue that Maryland has is a vibrant cannabis industry that sells the exact same products as its limited market social equity cannabis industry that has the Schedule 3 products, or will have the Schedule 3 products eventually. And there's a strict limit on one and no limit on the other.
Yeah. Looking at the article, it talks about how the rescheduling proposal was put into the White House OMB office on April 30th. So again, ain't shit happening. I'd pay attention to OMB until we that's when you get excited. When it gets into the DEA's hands, then we should be seeing an email that says, hey, comment period. And now, that's where people should voice. I think this is a ball moving forward, and we should, we got a positive story. We got a positive weed story if shit wasn't expected.
Well, this is a positive weed story, and it's an interesting one to like end the whole thing up, because it's kind of where we started, where the White House Office of Management and Budget got the scheduling recommendation on April 30th, so 2 weeks ago, and they have 90 days to complete the review. They believe it'll be expedited and then submitted to the Department of Justice for publication and a 60-day public comment period. That means that maybe by June, before July, I hope, we will have this rule published. And then 60 days, and then we'll see what the public comment period is after that, because like they have to address all the comments they get, and then they have to publish the final rule. That may put it out into the next administration. So the election will use this for like fodder, because if Trump gets in, is he going to support Schedule 3 weed?
Well, it won't even be a priority, right? There's some bullshit focus. They're all distracted. It's all distracted. But the thing is, if rescheduling, moving the ball forward, the one story I wanted to share with everybody before we took off, though, there was something funny that kind of happened with legalization, though, right? In Bakersfield, California, a woman who tried to turn in some found marijuana was turned away by the police. Like, it's such a benign thing, right? If this was a bag of meth or crystal, they definitely would have been on it. But this was a bag of weed that eventually she held onto it so long that they told her to just throw it away. Like, that's the future, So I just think,
but then you got to be careful. We're trying to open a dispensary. If the future is, hey, I got a bag of weed, well, throw it away. Everybody has one. Why do you have a dispensary?
Well, it's the same reason why you have a produce store or anything else.
Or a pizzeria. Right.
Yeah. It's always going to be a commodity, and it's always going to be, but the way it's viewed,
it's always going to be a privilege. I think it's going to be like a liquor license, and liquor licenses are privileges. And that's something that the hemp people have to understand, that you are going to need. And then they're like, but I have a license. You don't really have a license. You have a because the only license that exists is the cultivation one, and they test that for ripeness a month before harvest, and then no end products are regulated. So yeah, that's different than if you have like the license that we have, or like if we had a bar and had a liquor license, Well,
what's going to happen though is one day they're going to make a baby, and it's going to be Hemperana. Elect.
No, it's just going to be cannabis. I think they're gonna regulate it. How they're starting to regulate it, where you just have all these the hemp cannabinoid issues that are defined. It could get complex. We'll find out.
Yeah. Stay tuned next week.
Stay tuned, everybody. That's cannabis legalization news for the week. We are so stoked that you joined us. And if you're one of our members, thank you. We really appreciate your support. You get the videos first and the offers, plus your name's in the credits. See you next time.
Call your mom.